Matt's joined us from Maul Foster Alongi, and he is going to give us our final presentation on the Industrial Park Action Plan.
Yay!
Turn it over to you.
All right. Well, rebranded the Peste Business Park.
Yay!
So, give you a little overview, talk a little bit about the master plan, the first phase, and then some next steps. And this is a presentation overview. We're working on finalizing the report and looking forward to hearing feedback and input from you all as well. It could also make its way into the report if need be. But, and I also want to say right now that I would love it if you all stop me at any point and engage in discussion, ask questions. If it's coming up, I will tell you to hold your horses, but otherwise, look forward to the conversation we're about to have here. So, you're familiar with the park. What we did here with this graphic is, it's important to have an idea of what your lots might be. You don't need to subdivide this lot or this property, but to know how many acres you have, what the potential capacities of those acres are, what the developability of those acres are, is really important as you think through how you invest in activating these lots. And so, there's this statement here. There's 320,000 square feet of buildings roughly right now, and if you were to build out all of this at a relatively conservative building area, you would have 1.8 million square feet. And yes.
Are we getting this in writing afterwards?
Yes.
So we can review it? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't have to memorize all this.
Correct. Yeah. I'll make these slides available to Wendy and you all. So yeah, there's a lot of capacity on these lots, I guess, is a key takeaway point. Just highlight a couple of the strengths. We went over these last time, but it's been a while. So again, a lot of acres. Generally speaking, the infrastructure is ready from a power and water standpoint. You're on septic, which is not ideal because that takes up land area in which you can develop on, and we'll touch on some opportunities later, which you're obviously all well aware of. But so that's good news. The market fundamentals overall, looking at Mason County on the whole, vacancy rates are low, relatively speaking. It's a function of supply, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then you've also got some other advantages when it comes to the market. You've got your foreign trade zone, opportunity zones, new market tax credits. These are all kind of user dependent, and if you were to build the buildings, you wouldn't be taking advantage of these, but it could be a selling point for someone who is looking to locate here. So it's important for your storytelling. And then, of course, you're the port, so you can do lots of great things to make this reality happen. Yeah, gosh, just looking at that, it looks like there's more hurdles than...
Can you go back one for just a second?
Yes.
The very bottom, access to funny. Okay,
Yeah.
I just didn't get to that bottom line.
And I'll come back to make the market, but we'll talk about how there has been really no new construction for industrial space, and that's largely because it requires risk and risk in getting tenants, and there's a patience.
If you build it, they will come.
Yeah, and if not, then you're in trouble. And the port has the ability to be more patient. That's what I mean by make the market.
Okay.
So construction costs. Let's see. I didn't update that number. The 1.8 to 2.7 was for the structure. That's a little higher after more input from people that build these buildings. And then we also developed some cost estimates for building out the infrastructure to make it pad ready. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But there are construction costs. And that's just for that first phase. Then there's the readiness of that. So you're going to have to put some money down. Again, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's a hurdle. I think that's a pretty low hurdle. The other one, and this is kind of a hard one, is the Mason County market and surrounding industrial markets. So we'll talk about workforce just a little bit. It's in the report more, but your Mason County workforce, especially on the industrial worker side, on paper doesn't look robust. And you import workers, which is good, but overall you're going to have to, workforce development and communicating that you do have a ready workforce is going to be an important part of your marketing and working with the EDC on this. And so that's where you get into the last one, which is the workforce and labor. And so the Mason County workforce isn't growing as fast as, say, the larger counties like Thurston and Kitsap.
Well, they have houses.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
And they pay more
so
per
many
hour.
factors that play into that, and you're absolutely right. So talk a little bit about the existing inventory. When we last did this, the inventory or the vacancy rate was around 5.3%. You leased up a 5,000 square foot building in the interim, so now it's down to 3.7%. So really the only open space right now is a single building on Corporate Road that's 11,500 square feet. You can see here there's the now leased, and then we've got the building 30 which burned down, so that's another one. So just before and after. So right now you're on the left side with the industrial park, and what the port can and is able to do is cultivate that garden to make it ready so things can grow and be beautiful. So
See, we're not getting
At
into
least taking it a
gardening.
little literally.
We're getting into gardening.
no, don't worry. So there's three kind of big steps right now. It's identify and characterize the readiness of the lots. So where should you be focusing your time and energy? Prioritizing your investments in order to make those lots development ready, and then market the opportunities. So on the characterization, it's good. This is gonna be a printout. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this because the next slide we get into it. But this is kind of the blow by blow of those 18 lots, their size. Just thinking about the FAR is the floor area ratio, so it's basically saying 25% to 35% roughly of the site could have a building on it, building square feet. So that's how we get the building square footage. And then we looked at the availability of utilities, and obviously sewer is the great equalizer in this. But then the site grading, how much site grading needs to be done, how much vegetation needs clearing, and that kind of highlighted where the near term and midterm and kind of long term opportunities are. So rolling that up, this is how we look at looking at the 6 lots that make up the high, and the next slide we'll talk about these highs. That's really where I think we should be focusing. But you've got between 367,000 and 514,000 square feet of capacity. So that's a ton of building square footage. A lot of that's on your 2 lots on the north end of the north runway.
And why is the standard 0.25 to 0.35? That
There's-
seems pretty low.
It is. For industrial buildings, that's typical. So you have truck circulation that needs to happen around there. There's stormwater management. There's, in some cases, septic. And then also just, you don't normally build your buildings out to the lot lines.
Well,
There's-
yeah, but
So that's kind of an industry standard. More urban areas, you might see something around the half to allow for the other half would be circulation, but in these areas is typically what you see. So focus your eyes on the green areas. Those are the ones that were, after we went through those filters, they're considered high priority or high potential. And really 17 and 18, those small guys, obviously 18 is kind of tricky to get to. So there'd be a fair amount of investment there. 17 is a little closer. But really of these lots in your business park, 12, 13, and 8 are the ones that are most logical. 12 and 13 are really just, those are the gems of the park.
Yeah.
And
that's just right over here
Mhm.
behind Small and so.
yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was-
That's right.
they are,
13.
if I'm going to use you probably heard the words shovel ready and pad ready.
Yeah.
I like to think of shovel ready as, the permitting is in good shape, the utilities are to the site, but dirt really hasn't been turned yet, the site hasn't been graded. Pad ready is you've got all that, plus you've got a graded site, cleared, ready to go and develop. So you pretty much have a shovel-ready lots right there. It's just finding the right tenant, because you're not going to sell these properties because of the FAA.
Right.
Um,
And 14 didn't get into the list because it's treed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a little bit of grade change, but I mean, it's all relatively flat
Yeah.
here. So
Yeah.
the trees are just in the way.
Okay.
So these are some of the higher priority investments, and it's great that you are exploring the idea of a sewer extension, a municipal sewer extension. That's these black dotted line is roughly where that goes. That's actually, you'll see when we start talking about the first phase, pad 8 there, the impact that sewer has on the potential for the lots. But it's really exciting. So, and there's not a lot of site prep that needs to be done with the 12 and 13. There's sparse trees on the site, but that's kind of the pad ready versus shovel ready. It looks nice right now. So just being ready for it, I think, is, and I understand you all are too. It's how do we get trees down? What's the process for that? Communicating how long that takes, those kinds of things. And then I've got the road improvements. So behind that triangle lot along the runway side and north of 17, and then going down to the south. Those roads are not really truck ready. I actually encountered a rig going on the backside, and it was his way or
Get out of the way.
Yeah.
Get the law.
Yeah. And generally speaking, also just the roads for trucks in this area, that's another longer term discussion, is widening those roads and giving them standard widths. For now, they're good for getting trucks around there, but you're not going to be getting a lot of traffic through there in their current state.
2 trucks at a time going in opposite directions would be a bad idea.
Yeah, and there's not much space to back up, or
Is the sewer right there between 12 and 13? Is that why your dotted line starts there? Is that where
Correct.
it would connect? Okay.
Correct.
We have sewer up to that point.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
And do you have any idea how long that line is from there to the end of 8?
No, but I understand someone's doing the feasibility and cost
we're
estimate
doing
on
a
it.
study right now on that. Yep.
So that's exciting, because once you have that number of cost, then you can start thinking about how you pay for it. There's opportunities out there. So kind of thinking about, so this was prioritizing investments, now market the opportunities. So some things that you want to be doing, and you can see on the y-axis we kind of have time, and on the x-axis we have time, and on the y-axis up and down we've got the potential, the relative impact. Organize, so that's kind of getting your story ready about the opportunity here at Peste Business Park. And I will say right now, you've got great opportunity and high impact opportunity here, because there's really nothing on your website about the opportunity here. So you have a chance to rebrand it, highlight all the good things that can be done here, the investments that Port's making, and then more importantly, equally importantly, is trying to frame the workforce readiness, the joy it is to do business with permitting agencies, like all those kinds
Quality of life.
and then work, all of that, why you should locate here. Testimonials would be, kinds of things that would be great to have. I've got on there the update the website. It's going to be important, but if you were to just put material together and throw it up on the website, that's pretty much where your effort will end. And so you can see here, prepare for regional outreach. A lot of the users that will locate here and have located here are regionally based, and they just are familiar. They're familiar with the area. They might be from here, and so thinking about your outreach plan. So it's not necessarily I see lower below that I've got commercial listing. I'll explain that in a second. This is more who's who all is working here, who's growing,
Mhm.
and kind of really having someone pound the pavement a little bit and reaching out to those folks and say, hey, what's your long-term plan? Think about the up-and-comers and see if there are some opportunities for some of the businesses to locate here and grow in some of the smaller buildings. They're not going to be the 12 and 13 users, most likely, but
Right.
you think of some some opportunities to help businesses grow that couldn't grow here because you weren't necessarily ready, and they locate maybe to Thurston County or somewhere where there is building workforce. You gotta, give them reasons to grow here. So creating or developing that plan, Chamber of Commerce, all those EDC, I know you're really close with them right now, continue that relationship and grow that relationship. But then there's like tracking the responses so you can understand why. There might be, you might come in second or third, so you can overcome that issue and understand it. So this is probably, I've got 12 plus months that it's an ongoing effort. This is really where the gardening comes in. And instead of just letting the wind blow, you want to be strategic about where you get your seeds, so to speak. And on the commercial listing, you can always use a broker. I don't know, have you ever used a commercial broker?
We haven't.
It might be worth exploring. They're, once they're engaged for more than, say, 12 months or less, they might become disengaged after the momentum slows. And so just a word to the warning there.
Yeah.
A word to the wise. But the benefit of using a commercial broker is their relationships. And ideally you're using someone, to me, that would be the 12 and 13, the big properties
Right.
are why you would engage with a broker to really market that opportunity. And then we'll just call this the reality check. So in the report you'll see, looked at, so the state doesn't really do employment projections. And so we thought about what they do population forecasts by age. And so we thought about the working age population, and of that working age population growth over the next 5 years, how many of them might be industrial jobs employees. And in Mason County, there's don't quote me on this, but I believe it's 6 or 7% of the jobs in Mason County are in the industrial sector, as compared to the state, which is closer to 12%. So there's a lot more government work that's again, you'll see in the report, but so these numbers in a way kind of understate the opportunity, because you've got so much industrial land. If you could grow the workforce, you could flip the script a little bit and try and grow some of these jobs if you have places for them to grow. But what you can see here is this is based on 27 new employees, net new, coming out of Mason County, or coming into Mason County, that would drive this kind of square footage size. So 21,000 to 3,000 square feet of new construction space. And frankly, there's been zero new construction since, really in the past 15, 20 years, besides your building that Limb Saver's in right now. That's probably the newest building. And was that built for them, or did you build it?
It's built for them.
Yeah. So no spec building that has been done. And I think that's wise. This goes back to the marketing. It's wise to kind of create a stable of potential tenants so that you can purpose-built buildings, or at least not be as speculative. But this is also making some assumptions around workers coming in from Thurston County and Kitsap County as well. So I'd say it's pretty conservative, but it's real. We're not talking hundreds of thousands of square feet.
Yeah.
Are we considering our high school graduates and tech school graduates? Because our schools are leaning a little more into those jobs as opposed to everybody going to college. So are they new employees?
So they'd be part of that that cohort, that projected of folks, it's 25 to 64, I think, or 55 is the main prime
Oh,
working age group.
25, okay.
So those high schoolers, as they get in, in the next, they'll be in the 2027 range, they'll be in this range. But I would say that, this kind of understates that, because this is looking back and using those historical trends. And if you're doing things at the community level to help foster the workforce to do these kinds of jobs, then hopefully you can increase the number of industrial employed people as opposed to continuing this somewhat flat and downward trend that's been happening. So that's exciting. Workforce development is really,
Yeah,
really important.
yeah, our school's working hard on that.
Well, let's
Yeah.
build a school.
Yeah, they're trying to get welders out and
Mhm.
again, flaggers and CNAs, and they're trying to get them out of high school with all that in their hands to hit the ground.
Yeah. You got the TrueFab here. They
Yeah.
do some really interesting stuff. The fabrication.
Yeah.
I know one of the EDC's target sectors is advanced manufacturing,
Right.
and really, to me, it's where within the supply chain can businesses be established here to advance? Because you're not necessarily in Mason County unless you bring someone to make the stuff. You're
Right.
going to be making stuff to support other industries, kind of like what TrueFab is
Right.
doing, or Millworks, or another.
Yeah, middlemen.
Yep.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Oh no, those not
They're needed,
unfortunately.
but-
Those are great businesses and great jobs, and they're critical, especially as we're thinking about onshoring more. Like, you need those kinds of businesses. One of the things that there's all this warehouse space that's going in Thurston County. It's astounding.
Mhm.
It's like the smallest projects that are going in there are like 400,000 square feet. It's just
Yeah.
and what goes into those buildings? They're
Right.
getting the materials from all over the world,
Right.
or the equipment, but who's maintaining them, who's repairing them, I don't have an answer, but I'm just thinking like, well, all right, there's a lot of those buildings and a lot of the equipment that's going into those buildings. Is there a role that Mason County can have in supporting that activity?
Right.
I think you'd rather be in the supporting aerospace and the direct manufacturing, but it's my way of saying there's lots of arenas to be exploring
Mhm.
and supporting.
Every job has to be done by somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's not a
like I
robot.
said, on the new construction, this is where we get into the first phase, and this is not coincidental, but that first phase is around 15 to 20,000 square feet. The numbers that we just saw on the previous page kind of neatly match that. It should be noted that you've got a 30,000 square foot building that you could construct where building 30 used to be down at the south end. So, we're getting close to, based on these rough projections, meeting your demand, so to speak. So this is where you kind of begin to make the market and try to find businesses that just want to grow here and change that 6% of manufacturing jobs in Mason County to 7% or 8%. So this building would be, it could be flexible space. It could allow for, 3 to 4 businesses, or a single business that could use the building, the 5,000 square foot buildings and above, to jump into a larger space. Is Limb Saver, do they need like a centralized spot
Right.
to, just thinking about those kinds of things. And so, and we'll get into the 15 to 20,000 square feet in a second. That's a specifically driven number. So, a reminder, I mentioned this, it's just astounding the amount of building square footage that has been built in the 2010s and 2020s. And pretty much all of it is purpose-built space that isn't commercially leasable. So if you look at this, you're like, oh, well, we've got tons of space. There's got to be a lot of vacancies. Well, we saw in the CoStar market study, there's, sub 5% vacancy in the county. And this kind of underscores that discrepancy in the supply. I showed this chart last time, but on the left side is it's the roll-up of this data. So, 1.6 million square feet of industrial buildings in the county. But the right side is the CoStar data, which is the, commercially available industrial space in the county. And you can see the top of the right column has that light green. That's buildings that are built in the 2000s. Noticeably absent are the blue and purple, built in
Yeah.
2010s, 2020s, and it goes to show, and the Ports building is not in there because that was purpose built. Opportunity to, I think there's an unmet demand or unmet supply to meet some demand. So these are kind of these buildings aren't anything that you haven't seen, but they're just newer. And just driving around the property, you've got a wide range of buildings in quality and age, with really only one new building, like we said. But these aren't unlike what we've seen before. So this is the inside of like if you were to demise that 15 or 20,000 square foot building into three or four parts, this would be like one of the tenants. And so this is J.H. Kelly did this one. It's got like a 2-story office space, if that much space is needed, or you can simplify and just do 1 story. And then the remaining of that, like say 5,000 square foot footprint, is probably 4,000 square feet of it is for the industrial, light industrial use. And then this is a similar concept this is about a 20,000 square foot building. Same idea, just looking at it from the top of how someone could use a 20,000 square foot on that first phase lot. And these dimensions actually match quite nicely with that first phase lot. The first phase lot is a well-dimensioned piece of property for this building. And you can see here, so this is, we did some line work on here. As you can see, this was before the port was considering the municipal sewer extension. And so we had to account for the septic drain field on the north side of the building. And so that's how we arrived at a 15,000 square foot building. Now, with that investment, you can add another 5,000 square feet to that building and have 4 walls and 20,000 square feet instead of 15,000 square foot building, because you could build to the north since the drain field is not needed. And this really, again, underscores the value of that investment on the municipal sewer. You're going to give potential developers, A, they don't have to worry about the septic field. You're tying right into municipal services, but B, you have the ability to build more square footage. We also, you can see on where number 21 is on the lower left, kind of a road extension over to
Sanderson.
Yep.
Way.
So it squares that off and creates another building pad that could be similar.
So this is 8.
Correct.
Okay.
Let's see, is there anything else? Yeah, and we, it's similar to, like, say, that 5,000 square foot Lim Saver building. We purposely built it or designed it so that if you wanted to build it, and this is kind of next phase design, but do you want kind of that office facade on the front with no roll-up doors, or you could actually, there's enough width to do a roll-up door so you could actually drive through if so desired. There's a long way of saying there's flexibility in the design in the space. Costs. So we've got up top the horizontal site costs. This is getting that first phase ready, and that's let me stand up. So all of these sum up to around between 500,000 and 485,000. So the price goes down because on the with the septic field, you're building in that septic field cost, and municipal sewer, that goes away. So that's the delta there. And then the vertical cost, which we're assuming $172 per square foot of building space, which is why this one's more expensive than that one, because you got 5,000 square feet more. And then roll in sales taxes, you've got a project that's between 3.4 and $4.3 million.
So you're saying without a building, it would cost us between $535 and $485. to get it ready for a building.
Yes, and keep in mind that also includes that road extension,
Okay.
which
Is optional.
benefits the port. It doesn't necessarily benefit this project.
And the 42.9 is just the amount of the sewer needed for that building. Up at top.
That's basically what that one is it's site prep. So it's grading the site, getting it level.
Okay,
And then grading it is prepping the site.
but it
bringing
would
the
have to be
materials.
part of a larger project,
Which?
the sewer.
The sewer is independent of this. We don't know how much that costs yet.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah. It's probably going to be, well, it'll be a lot more than the horizontal stuff. I mean, it's, I don't know how long it is, but it's probably less than a mile, but
But how far out, construction-wise, would sewer be as opposed to septic systems?
Construction timeline, you mean?
Uh-huh.
It probably just depends on contractors that are out there. I can't imagine it would be that much more, but maybe the city timeline, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it's hard
And,
to tell.
yeah, and the sewer, that 50,000 might be light. But it should be, you know, just
Well-
some houses I've seen have spent 35 just putting in a,
Oh,
putting in
for
a
the
septic
septic?
system, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, they're expensive.
Yep.
And then we wouldn't, you know, if we did a septic system, we would never know if we've met the needs of the person gonna use the building. Because they might say, oh, that nice brand new septic system, but
Yeah.
ain't gonna work for us,
Uh-huh.
for what we do.
Yeah.
So I worry about that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
we need, because of our product thing, we need this certain thing, yeah. Yeah. We worry about
Well,
that.
you're going to be using, I mean, that's going to go in, yeah, actually, no, you're right. Municipal sewer can manage that.
Right, manage things a little differently. Anyway, yeah. Good, I appreciate these numbers, this is helpful.
Yeah. Well, it helps you think about, and then there's the revenue side.
Mm-hmm.
So how much can you make? And this is just annual, I should have put, these are annual numbers, actually year one, so without any escalations. On the top row, you can see there's $6 per square foot per year, translated as 50 cents per square foot per year. At the low end, and then according to CoStar, if you had a 5,000 square foot building, the market rate would be $1.08. $1.08 per square foot per month, which is about $13 per square foot.
Mhm.
And smaller spaces demand a higher per square foot number, just because of the efficiency or inefficiency. And so you can see, kind of got that line in between the chart. The smaller spaces, you might be able to get the higher end if you were to do these, this is a new building. The other thing you're gonna have to weigh is the type of tenant. And if you're supporting a tenant that is growing a business, this might be too pricey for them, so that's another thing to be considering. But this highlights the sensitivity of those rents. And then typically on the operating expenses, you're paying management companies, you're handling your the triple nets. The tenant pays for utilities or pays back the utilities and that, but those are outlays and you don't always recoup all those costs. So there's operating costs that a market rate operator, and those are typically they're closer to 25-30% of your income is going out to expenses, so your net income is kind of less than what you're getting in rent. But on the port side, it's really just your overhead, and you're more efficient, and you're not most of the times bringing in a property manager. So I don't know who does your property management, but they just get another building to
Yeah.
deal with. So
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
So what I'm understanding this to say is 1980s vintage buildings on port property are being
Right.
leased for 32 to 39 cents a square foot. And then if we just simply build a new building, that we're going to increase our rent by $3 3 times.
For that building, yes. It's a new construction and it's a completely different economics. So that then you have to weigh, this comes back to, who your potential tenants are and
Right.
your outreach. But those are the, and frankly, if you were to run this out in a cash flow and think of it as a private developer, it would be hard to build a project for anything that's not getting that dollar, upper end range, without knowing the tenant and all that, all those important factors.
And are tenants, potential tenants gonna look at what our other tenants are paying and say, wait a minute, they're only paying 39 cents, how come you want us to pay $1.08?
They'll be looking at the total dollar amount more, but as opposed to the per square foot. So, I'm paying, $3,000 a month where this guy's only paying $2,000 a month.
Right.
Why is that? And that's definitely something that, those are, but you're getting a new building that's more efficient, that,
With sewer.
and,
Yeah, you're hooked to
and,
sewer
yeah.
maybe, or,
So that's up to us to market it and, yeah.
It's all about communicating the value of that space relative to, hey, or you can move into the 5,000 square foot building, one of the 5,000 square foot buildings we have to the north. You won't be able to grow in it. There's value in if you ultimately build a 20,000 square foot building and you find 4 tenants and you subdivide it, over time, one of those tenants could roll out and another one could expand and grow into that vacated space and have 10,000 square feet, take out a wall, create a nice efficient floor plan for themselves. There's just more flexibility. It allows them to grow in place as opposed to growing in a campus style that you see happen in your 5,000 square foot buildings.
So does that transfer to, if we are going to allow someone to build a building on port property, does the fact that it's a new building increase the value of the land lease rate?
The land lease rate is based on the value of the land, which is based on how much someone could make on building. In a way, it does. What you need to get land sale comps, and that's and then it's a percentage on that land. But what's driving the land value is the question.
and it could increase the value of the land by having these types of building on it eventually. But I think what we have right now is kind of land market rates based on where the property is.
Right.
So like if you want frontage out here
Right.
along 101, you're gonna pay a lot more than you are up in the business park.
Yeah. But just the availability of the land increases it, or the lack of availability of land increases it somewhat, just on a day-to-day basis, not necessarily for marketing purposes, but every day, the value, because land is, you can't make any more land.
Right.
Right.
Scarcity.
I learned that from a realtor.
Did you?
A keynote
Not making any
on
more of it.
ground leases. Most folks that do want to build their own building don't like doing ground leases. I don't know how many ground leases you all have done.
We have a few.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great if there is someone like a hook. Could be. I was talking to another former port CFO, and he was, and this is what we've done on the private side too, front loading the rent payments. So they're basically effectively buying the land, but it looks like from a lender's perspective that they're buying the land on a long-term lease, and then basically the port's getting an upfront payment as opposed to a series of payments over time. Things that you have to weigh are escalations and the missed opportunity of those escalations versus your ability to get up front and invest it in your own way.
In the whole GIB.
Yeah, so
We haven't done that.
No.
No,
Yeah.
but that,
We
it
just
seems
do-
like that would be something that would be generated by a potential tenant, that would be to their
It would
Or
be.
not, or it's, oh, you said a hook, though.
Yeah, so if they're like, oh, I don't like ground leases, we're like, so well, there's ways we can structure a ground lease.
And then it ends
To
up being
make it-
$1 a year, something at the end of some time.
Yeah,
So that's
basically
still
they pay
this
up
thing,
front
but
and then
you-
it's just
you-
$1 going
yeah,
on.
you own-
Exactly,
Yeah,
yep,
okay.
yeah. And so, yeah, definitely know some folks in the public financing world to help with those discussions. So just thinking about so to wrap up, sewer extension and marketing, I think are two of the obvious near-term steps. The sewer extension's already starting. As far as how to finance that, I don't know if you've gotten that far, but it's a classic public works board construction loan if you want to finance it by someone else or with someone else as opposed to self-financing it. It's a great source, no matching, no loan fees, low rates.
That's
Wow.
through Commerce, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what I didn't put in there, I mean, while you're at it, you could also, using that loan, do the site development for phase one, as well as that road extension out to Sanderson, West Sanderson. Marketing, I think this is really important and a relatively low lift, but getting your material right, I mean, just bare minimum is the website. And you have an opportunity now that you've got a new name for it, so you've got a cause to do some rebranding of this. And then on the vertical construction, so the building, again, this kind of the first bullet ties back to the marketing, like try to develop some relationships and a pool of potential tenants, understand what their needs are, and they might even, might be kind of fun for them to inform the building itself and some of its unique needs. And then the other thing I put in here is weighing, you've got, building 30, so you've got your first phase of a potentially 20,000 square foot building that you'd need to finance, or you've got the 30,000 square foot building, the south end, which you have money for. And there might be two different tenant profiles, someone who's more airside and near the runway or access to the runway versus someone up in the more industrial, northwest part of the business park. But that's another, comes back to the understanding the depth of your users.
Yep.
It would be risky to have two buildings at 50,000 square feet, newly constructed, with no tenants. So, well, caution.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Although maybe we already have a tenant for that.
And then but again, besides funding it yourself, there's curb grants. It'd be great if you could do a prospective user grant, but there's also speculative funds that you can use to build it. I put a CARB loan as well, which is the aviation version of a CURB grant. Even if you're not necessarily building, if you're air related, you can also access those funds. And there's similar programs and similar terms. As you know, the dollar amounts that you're looking at right now aren't going to really tip the scales, but the upper limits are going up in this next biennium. So
Oh, that's good.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you're within the current limits, so I guess
Yeah.
it's not that exciting unless you really
I
want
don't
to.
think CARB has as much.
No.
I don't think their limits are as high.
Yeah. And then just a couple of, the street repair and the road width standardization that's going to need to be addressed. Just like clearing and prepping lot 12 and 13, they're in good shape, so I wouldn't, fret over that too much. I don't think anyone has, and I don't think you should. And then just really long term, working with PUD number 3 on increasing the power, because if you do get a 12 and 13 user and then a bunch of other users on these lots,
Yeah.
you're likely going to be stressing your power, and there's other industrial users, or on the other side of the street there's industrial land, you'll be stressing the network. So I know that those conversations have started as well, and just continue those over time. So, yeah, that's
Good stuff.
That's it.
Okay.
Good stuff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, let's go back to this
Look
first
for,
slide, so we can relish in the Peste Business Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. I like that.
Putting the sign up. I guess what concerns me is the sewer, we keep talking about the sewer extension and hookup to the sewer. And right now, the city is saying we don't have to annex to do that. That's what they say today. Yesterday, that was the big thing. If you're gonna use our sewer, you're gonna be annexed into the city. Who's to say, and we can't predict with a crystal ball where we're gonna go on that, but I kinda hate to be tied to being forced into something because we wanna use a sewer extension. And I don't know how we can protect ourselves against that.
Build our own sewer system.
Build our own-
Did you say that out loud?
Yeah. Just kidding.
Well, that's, you
Yeah.
could, ports can
could.
do that, you know?
Do we want to?
We can have our own police departments, our own
Yeah,
fire departments,
yeah.
all that sort of thing.
Be our own
It's in the
town.
realm. But is it reality? No, it's not.
I think where you get in the conversation and it becomes real is when you have a potential user that absolutely has to have sewer. You know?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of ways that you could, protect yourself in the event of an annexation.
Right.
If,
Well, they're already trying it.
yeah, and I mean, I'm thinking of a planned action environment at EIS where you kind of already dictate how your area would be built out. This is a good start.
And I think it's that development agreement.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would formulate a development agreement.
With the city?
Yeah, an industrial
Yeah,
master
we would
development plan.
write it. It would be, John Sitkin is the master
Yeah.
at that. So you write a development agreement and you basically
Yeah.
term out what, these are the things that we desire. We don't want our buildings to have curbs and gutters. We want to have
Mhm.
sewer throughout or whatever we
Mhm.
say. Whatever we
Mhm.
decide is really important and our water system needs to remain intact and we
Mhm.
protect this and that for 20
Yeah.
years or however.
Whatever.
I think
Mhm.
20 years is pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's so if it came to be a
Mhm.
forced issue and we weren't excited about that.
We
then
would
I
do
think
some
we
kind of
would-
interlocal with them.
That's what
Yeah.
Frank
Okay.
Schmelik
Okay.
suggested.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah,
It
if
ends up
that
being
became
an
a deal.
interlocal agreement, but it's called a development agreement and
Okay,
by statute, you're able to do that. And
okay.
we happen to know John Sitkin pretty well. So.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we know his name.
So I think that would be the nature. I think the difference here is, their sewer line is running right smack
Yeah.
through our property, so it's
Are they
already
paying
there.
an easement on that?
No, there was an agreement. I don't know that it was ever paid, and there was rumor that it was. We got some hookups
Okay.
based on.
Oh.
But,
In lieu of
yeah, we'd
payment
have
for
to.
it.
Yeah, but I'm not positive that's the case either. We'll have to look into.
But the sewer is there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It is, to that, where you
Yes,
started the dotted
yeah.
line, yep,
Yeah.
it runs right smack dab through our.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
appreciate it, Matt.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
man,
Appreciate your
great.
work.
Good stuff. I look forward to it in
And-
hard copy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
write on it.
I'll email
I
it.
think there's a
Highlight on
lot
it.
more to
I
be
keep your-
digested.
Your other one right here, because I love your maps.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Wendy starts talking about something, I can just open it up and go, oh, I know exactly which thing she's
Well,
talking about.
that'll be an
At some
appendix to
point,
the final report.
Where did that end up on someone else's or something?
Yeah, one
She just
time.
panicked.
Yeah,
Where
where
did
did
this
you go?
It's all thrown away.
I'd like to look at it. Yeah. Because this was kind of like the baseline where you said this is what everything is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I appreciate it. I look at it a lot.
Got the utilities and everything too.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you for the time.
Yeah,
Thanks, man.
thank you.
I really
Yeah,
appreciate it,
We'll be
yeah.
talking.
You'd have to
Yes.
go watch